The 1931 Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was so disturbing, so brutally ahead of its time, that MGM later tried to destroy every copy that existed. This is a film born in the wildest days before the production code, when Hollywood could still get away with transformations that terrified censors, sexuality that shocked audiences, and an Oscar-winning performance that pushed its lead actor to the brink of collapse. Today on Iconic TV Rewind, we're unearthing 20 weird and deeply unsettling facts about the pre-code horror masterpiece that Hollywood tried to erase forever.
Forgive me, my dear. You see, I hurt you because I love you.
Fact number 1. Fredric March made Academy Award history. It's hard to imagine now, but Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde made history at the Academy Awards in one of the strangest ways possible. Fredric March actually tied for Best Actor. When the votes were counted, March and Wallace Beery were separated by just one vote. But due to a technicality in Academy rules, both men were declared winners. This created the first acting category tie in Oscar history, something so rare that it wouldn't happen again for Best Actor until 1968. March's win stunned Hollywood because horror films almost never earn major awards, and his physically punishing performance, switching from refined gentleman to maniacal beast, made the Academy take a genre seriously that it usually dismissed. But the strangeness didn't end there. Behind the scenes, some industry insiders argued that March should have been the sole winner, while others believed Beery shouldn't have qualified at all under the voting rules of the era. Yet no matter how controversial the outcome was, the tie launched Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde into Oscar lore. It became the first horror movie to take home an acting Oscar, a milestone that wouldn't be repeated for decades. Fact number 2. MGM tried to erase the film from existence. Few movies have been targeted for destruction the way this one was. When MGM produced its own remake of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in 1941, starring Spencer Tracy, the studio didn't just want to update the story. They wanted the original forgotten. MGM bought the rights to the 1931 version and immediately launched a recall campaign to retrieve and destroy every print they could find. They didn't want audiences comparing Tracy's restrained interpretation to March's ferocious animalistic performance, which many critics considered superior. For decades afterward, the 1931 film was believed lost, surviving only through rumor and fading memories. March, who was known for his dry sense of humor, sent Tracy a sarcastic telegram after the remake premiered. It read, "Thank you for the greatest boost to my reputation." He knew exactly what MGM was doing, and he knew why. The studio feared that March's Hyde was simply too iconic, too raw, and too unforgettable. Ironically, MGM's attempt to bury the original only cemented its mythology, and its rediscovery decades later sparked a wave of renewed respect for its daring storytelling and groundbreaking effects. Fact number 3. The transformation effects stayed a secret for 30 years. The transformation scenes in the 1931 film are still stunning today, and for decades, no one, not critics, not rival studios, not even makeup experts, could figure out how they were done. Director Ruben Mamoulian guarded the secret fiercely. There were no digital tricks, no optical dissolves, and no stop-motion makeup changes. Instead, Mamoulian used a breathtaking analog technique involving colored filters placed in front of the camera lens. March's makeup was applied in different colors that appeared invisible or visible depending on which filter was engaged. By switching filters mid-shot, Mamoulian made March's face seem to contort and morph right before the audience's eyes, without a cut. This technique was revolutionary, and Mamoulian refused to reveal how it worked. Special effects experts studied the scenes frame by frame, convinced there had to be hidden edits or chemical processes involved. But Mamoulian stayed silent until the late 1960s, when he finally explained the trick in his book, The Celluloid Muse. By then, the film was already legendary, and his innovation influenced generations of filmmakers. The fact that a secret this brilliant stayed hidden for more than 30 years tells you just how ahead of its time this movie truly was. Fact number 4. The entire opening is shot through Jekyll's eyes. The film's opening is one of the most daring sequences of early sound cinema. A full 3.5 minutes shot entirely from Dr. Jekyll's point of view. The camera glides through his home, down hallways, across rooms, and into a lecture hall, all without revealing March's face. You only see him when he steps in front of a mirror, stunning audiences who weren't used to subjective filmmaking on this scale. At the time, cameras were massive, heavy, and loud, often locked to tripods or crude dollies. Mamoulian, however, pushed his crew to break technical limitations, mounting the camera on a moving platform and coordinating precise, choreographed movement to sell the illusion. The sequence feels modern even today because it immerses viewers in Jekyll's world before they've truly met him. That level of visual experimentation was rare in 1931, especially for a studio horror film. It signaled immediately that this was not a standard monster movie, but a sophisticated experiment in perspective and identity, one that set the tone for the psychological horror that followed. Fact number 5. Censors hacked out 8 minutes. When Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was re-released in 1936, the newly enforced production code descended on it like a hammer. The film's portrayal of sexuality, violence, and moral corruption horrified the censors, who demanded that more than 8 minutes of footage be removed before the movie could return to theaters. Entire scenes of Ivy's seduction, Hyde's abusive cruelty, and Jekyll's psychological torment vanished, replaced by awkward jump cuts that confused audiences for decades. Many viewers assumed the film was simply edited badly, unaware that the missing footage had been cut to satisfy new moral standards. Those 8 minutes are a major reason the movie's reputation grew so mysterious over time. The original cut was said to be shockingly bold, even for pre-code Hollywood. It dealt with themes of repression, desire, and addiction with an intensity that was unthinkable after the code took effect. For years, restored versions struggled to reassemble the original sequences because so many prints had been destroyed by MGM. What remains today is as complete as possible, but film historians agree that some of the most provocative material ever shot for the film may be lost forever. Fact number 6. Miriam Hopkins fought to play the wrong role. Before filming began, Miriam Hopkins shocked the studio by insisting she should play Muriel, the respectable fiancée, instead of Ivy, the seductive cabaret performer. Hopkins feared that playing Ivy would typecast her as a fallen woman at a time when actresses often struggled to escape that label. Director Ruben Mamoulian, however, knew that Ivy was the role that could make her unforgettable. He spent days persuading her that the emotional depth, sensuality, and danger surrounding Ivy would showcase her abilities in a way no polite character ever could. Eventually, Hopkins relented and took the part she initially resisted. Her performance vindicated Mamoulian's instincts. Ivy became one of the most memorable pre-code characters of the era, and Hopkins' vulnerability and intensity added layers of tragedy that shaped the entire film. Ironically, Rose Hobart, who desperately wanted to play Ivy, was cast as Muriel instead, further fueling behind-the-scenes tension. The role Hopkins feared would hurt her career, instead helped define it. Fact number 7. The star was known for comedy. When Paramount cast Fredric March as Dr. Jekyll, many in the industry were baffled. March was best known as a charming comic actor, often playing light, witty characters, not tortured scientists or monstrous alter egos. Executives worried that audiences wouldn't accept him in such a dark, physically demanding role. But director Ruben Mamoulian recognized something others didn't. March possessed both the technical discipline and the emotional range to portray Jekyll's duality with terrifying realism. The gamble paid off. March's performance stunned critics, who praised the way he shifted from refined warmth to predatory savagery on command. The role not only earned him an Oscar, but also reinvented his career almost overnight. What began as a controversial casting choice became one of the most celebrated acting transformations of early Hollywood. Fact number 8. Miriam Hopkins' nude shot sparked outrage. One of the most infamous elements of the film was a brief but daring shot of Miriam Hopkins as Ivy, completely nude for about 5 seconds as she slips into bed. Though tame by modern standards, this moment scandalized conservative audiences and infuriated censors across the country. Many theaters demanded the scene be cut immediately, and even restored versions of the film often lacked the footage entirely, making it one of the most elusive images from early horror cinema. The shot wasn't included simply for shock value, it was designed to establish Ivy's vulnerability and the seductive power she unknowingly held over Jekyll. Its disappearance in later edits altered the tone of their first encounter, stripping away the bold sexuality that originally made the film so provocative. This tiny scene became a symbol of Hollywood's pre-code freedoms and the crackdown that followed. Fact number 9, March dominated the screen. Fredric March appeared in an astonishing 218 of the film's 305 scenes, splitting almost evenly between his Jekyll and Hyde personas. As Jekyll, he delivered nearly 300 lines of dialogue, while Hyde spoke only 81 sentences. Yet those limited lines carried some of the film's most chilling moments. This near-constant presence meant March had to maintain two entirely different characters with almost no break between them, often switching from elegant charm to feral madness within a single day of shooting. His dominance of the screen helped cement the film as a character study rather than a simple monster thriller. The audience wasn't merely watching a transformation, they were trapped inside it with him, experiencing the psychological split as intensely as he did. Few actors of the era undertook such a demanding dual role, and even fewer matched the impact March achieved. Fact number 10. The makeup removal hospitalized Fredric March. While the Hyde transformation makeup was groundbreaking, it was also brutal to remove. Actress Rose Hobart later recalled watching March wince and struggle as solvents were applied to dissolve the layers of putty, grease paint, and cheesecloth sealed to his skin. On at least one occasion, the removal process went horribly wrong, burning March so severely that he required hospital treatment. With no latex appliances and no safety standards, actors of the era often endured painful methods for the sake of realism. March pushed through the discomfort because he believed Hyde needed to look truly monstrous, not like a man wearing makeup, but a creature tearing its way out of Jekyll's body. That dedication came at a physical cost, but it paid off in a performance that felt primitive, visceral, and shockingly alive. The pain behind the scenes became part of the film's raw, unforgettable energy. Fact number 11. The film used 35 custom-built sets. Paramount spared no expense in creating the world of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The studio built 35 separate sets to authentically portray Victorian London, from fog-drenched alleyways to lavish drawing rooms. Supervising art director Hans Dreyer oversaw the massive undertaking, crafting staircases, laboratories, pubs, boudoirs, and entire street facades that felt lived in and historically believable. The level of detail was extraordinary for a horror film, since the genre was typically treated as low-budget entertainment. These elaborate sets helped elevate the story far beyond a typical monster movie. They grounded the film's psychological themes in a textured, atmospheric world that shifted subtly depending on whether the scene belonged to Jekyll's refinement or Hyde's depravity. Dreyer's craftsmanship became a defining part of the film's identity, giving it a richness and visual credibility that audiences of the time rarely saw in dark, morally disturbing stories. Fact number 12. John Barrymore was the first choice. Before Fredric March ever stepped into the role, Paramount approached legendary actor John Barrymore to reprise his performance from the 1920 silent version. Barrymore wanted to do it, but contractual obligations with MGM made it impossible. Because of this, Paramount was forced to seek someone new, someone who could match Barrymore's theatrical intensity while bringing emotional nuance to a sound-era performance. March wasn't the obvious choice, but he bore a physical resemblance to Barrymore and had the dramatic instincts needed for the role. That unexpected pivot changed Hollywood history. March's interpretation was far more psychologically grounded than Barrymore's silent-era stylization, and it capitalized on the new possibilities of sound, makeup, and camera movement. What began as a backup casting became one of the most celebrated performances of the early 1930s, proving that great roles sometimes find the right actor only by accident. Fact number 13, the director recorded his own heartbeat. To intensify the transformations, Director Ruben Mamoulian took an experimental approach to sound design. He recorded his own heartbeat after sprinting up and down a flight of stairs, then layered it with a gong that had its initial strike removed, allowing only the eerie, reversed reverberations to echo through the scene. Mamoulian even painted directly onto the film's audio track, creating distorted pulses and throbs that resembled a living organism. These techniques were years ahead of their time and helped redefine how sound could be used to create psychological tension. Mamoulian believed this was the first instance of synthetic sound in cinema, and he wasn't far off. The result was a transformation sequence that felt more like a descent into madness than a physical mutation. Audiences weren't just watching Hyde emerge, they were hearing Jekyll's sanity tear itself apart. Fact number 14. The makeup rig is visible on camera. One of the film's best-kept oddities appears in a scene where Hyde transforms back into Jekyll in the presence of Dr. Lanyon. If you look closely, March briefly exposes a padded mechanical rig attached to the back of his chair. This contraption was used to hold his head in a fixed position during makeup application so the team could rapidly build or remove layers without ruining continuity. It was never meant to be seen by the audience, but the fast-paced shooting schedule left no time to reshoot the moment. Instead of breaking the illusion, the glimpse of machinery adds a strange charm to the film's experimental nature. It reminds viewers that early horror required creativity, ingenuity, and occasionally a hidden device or two to pull off its ambitious effects. Even accidental reveals became part of the movie's legacy, illustrating how groundbreaking and improvised its production truly was. Fact number 15. The film had a massive budget for its time. At a time when horror movies were typically produced on shoestring budgets, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde shocked the industry with its enormous $535,000 price tag. Paramount gave Mamoulian 7 full weeks of shooting time, lavish sets, large casts, and groundbreaking effect support. Resources almost unheard of for a genre still considered lowbrow entertainment. The investment demonstrated how seriously the studio believed in Mamoulian's vision and in the potential cultural impact of the story. The budget paid off. The film's visual richness, daring narrative choices, and high production values helped elevate horror into a more prestigious arena. Its success proved that audiences were hungry for darker, more psychologically intense stories, and that studios were willing to gamble on them. In many ways, this film paved the path for future horror classics to be treated as legitimate art rather than pulp. Fact number 16. The director banned all background music. Director Ruben Mamoulian made the unusual decision to strip nearly all background music from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, creating a stark and unsettling soundscape that stood out even in 1931. At a time when studios were still experimenting with talkies and often overloaded films with constant orchestral scoring, Mamoulian believed that silence and the raw sounds of footsteps, breathing, and street noise would make Jekyll's world feel more realistic and far more disturbing. The choice paid off. The quiet moments amplify Hyde's sudden eruptions of violence and make the transformations feel eerily intimate, as if the viewer is trapped in Jekyll's mind. Mamoulian was one of the first directors to understand how powerful silence could be in horror storytelling. His refusal to rely on traditional scoring forced audiences to sit with the tension instead of being guided by musical cues, which made the film feel modern long before psychological horror became a recognized subgenre. The sound design became one of the most influential aspects of the movie, proving that sometimes the scariest thing a director can do is take the music away. Fact number 17. A long, provocative leg shot defines a key scene. One of the film's boldest visual choices occurs when Jekyll visits Ivy's bedroom and the camera lingers on her exposed leg for an astonishing 25 seconds. To modern audiences, it might seem tame, but in 1931, the shot was flagrantly sexual, deliberately pushing the boundaries of what studios could show before the production code clamped down. The lingering dissolve technique wasn't just provocative, it was psychological. Mamoulian used the image to symbolize how Ivy haunted Jekyll's thoughts long after he left her room. The shot is now celebrated as a masterclass in visual storytelling. It communicated Jekyll's internal conflict without a single word spoken. revealing how deeply he was drawn to Ivy's world of sensuality and danger. It also became one of the clearest markers of the film's pre-code daring, the kind of cinematic freedom that would vanish only a few years later. Fact number 18. March nearly collapsed due to the intensity of the role. Playing both Jekyll and Hyde wasn't just demanding, it nearly destroyed Fredric March's health. A studio press writer reported that his intense, physically explosive performance was draining his vitality, leaving him exhausted and shaken between takes. The constant cycle of transformations, emotional whiplash, and physically punishing scenes pushed him to the brink, and he eventually spent several days in a Hollywood clinic recovering from the strain. The verdict from the time: nerves shot. This wasn't just studio exaggeration. March's Hyde required contortions, snarls, lunges, and violent eruptions that took genuine physical effort. The performance's rawness came from a place of actual risk, and it carved a permanent mark on his career. His near collapse became part of the film's mythology, a testament to how far early actors pushed themselves in the pursuit of cinematic authenticity. Fact number 19. A violent moment causes Jekyll to transform without the potion. In restored footage, a key moment reveals exactly why Jekyll transforms into Hyde without drinking the potion. He witnesses a bird being brutally killed by a cat in a tree. That brief violent act, combined with lingering chemical traces still in his system, becomes the catalyst that unleashes Hyde. It's a chilling detail that shows how fragile Jekyll's control has become and how close Hyde always is to the surface. This moment of instinctive animal aggression mirrors Jekyll's own unraveling psyche. The restoration gives the transformation deeper meaning. Instead of appearing random, it becomes symbolic of Jekyll's descent into the very savagery he believes he is studying. The line between man and monster has dissolved, and the world around him now triggers the beast he once believed he commanded. Fact number 20. The film premiered at the first Venice Film Festival. When the first ever Venice International Film Festival opened in 1932, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was chosen as its premiere screening, an honor that validated its artistic ambition on an international scale. Audiences and critics were stunned by its bold style, psychological depth, and technical innovation. Fredric March won the festival's Most Favorite Actor award, while Mamoulian received recognition for Most Original Fantasy Story, solidifying the film's early global acclaim. This premiere helped establish Venice as a major platform for innovative cinema, and it positioned Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde as a film worthy of serious cultural attention. Long before MGM tried to bury it, the world recognized it as a groundbreaking psychological horror story, one that expanded what movies could achieve in both form and emotion.
The least little thing, mind you. I'll show you what horror means.
From groundbreaking sound experiments to dangerous makeup effects, from censorship battles to Oscar history, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde remains one of the most daring horror films ever made. Hollywood may have tried to erase it, but its legacy is impossible to kill. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which fact shocked you the most and which classic film we should uncover next on Iconic TV Rewind.